Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. My special guest tonight is Pasta, who is a co-host of the Convo Couch. What's going on, Pasta? Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me on Friday night. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
All right. So, Cornel West or RFK Jr. I mean, I already know like where you stand in reference to this, but I think we can talk about like some of the pros and the cons between the two here. Who would you say is your candidate and why?
Well, if I had to vote today, I'd obviously have to go vote for Cornel West because he's in the third party, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know if I'm going to have a chance to vote for RFK because I don't think he's going to get through the Democratic primaries, right? But a win for me is not so much the person winning the primaries and getting a chance to run in the general or winning the general election, because I honestly don't believe they're never going to let Cornel West or RFK get in the White House. But it's about raising that political discourse, amongst us. This is really going deep right now. And I know a lot of people are really upset with me because I'm an election integrity guy and I say the election systems are not fair and what, I'm saying. But I encourage people, if they want to vote, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't think that the elites should take that process away from us. Our vote is simply our voice in, the majority rule. And that's how I think the majority of things should be done as a democracy, as a country, to decide. Yes, we can, small it and scale it down to local voting for local things. But, I do believe in the voting process. So I'm going to make them steal my vote. You can't pry my vote out of my dead cold hands. But like I said, for me, a win is the political discourse, the conversations we're having. Unfortunately, Americans only come around once every 4 years when there's a president race to start talking about things and looking into politics. But that's when we can talk about the issues. That's when we can have strong conversations, important conversations. And that's what I think both Cornel West and RFK are bringing to the table right now. But if you did honestly ask me who the better candidate is right now, I would have to say RFK a little bit over Cornel West, just by a little bit.
I knew you were going to say that, but yeah. It's cool.
I gotta be honest.
Why do you think, in reference to the primary, I can't remember if you're in California or Nevada, or you're still in Vegas?
I'm back in Florida now. I just moved home with Mom.
Okay, so you're in Florida. Okay, I see what you're saying. Do you think RFK Jr. is going to stay in this race long enough so that everybody gets a chance to vote for him? And I ask that because some of you never got the opportunity to vote for Bernie Sanders. And it's one of those things I don't think about because I'm in Massachusetts, so it's an early primary state. Yeah. So we're Super Tuesday. So I got the chance to vote for Bernie Sanders. But I'm thinking about people that live in places like Florida or New York. You think RFK Jr. will drop out at a certain time, or do you think he's going to stay in for the long haul?
Well, first off, we never know what's going to happen. Anything's up for grabs. It's a new time. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. Everything has changed. The voters have changed. The people have changed. The method in which we votes change. It almost seems like the DNC is increasingly rubbing in our face and changing rules and shutting us down and censoring us and stealing from the grassroots. One of the biggest reasons, Sabrina, I'm an election integrity activist. It's not just because I didn't think the 2020 election was fair and 2016 was robbed from Bernie. I was a Bernie supporter. Same thing in 2020. It's because I honestly believe moving forward, the grassroots, whether it be left-wing grassroots, right-wing grassroots, libertarian grassroots, they'll never have a chance. The small voice will never have a chance unless we fix these elections. So with the way the election system is set right now, where a lot of states have taken their COVID election laws because they had to keep us safe, right? They've actually made some of those laws permanent. So there's a lot of ways that they can do things. Anything is up for grabs. I mean, look what happened last time with Biden. He was in 7th place going into South Carolina, and the person in 2nd place and the person in 4th place dropped out to endorse the person in 7th place. And here we are today. And you can question a lot of things. I'm not going to go out on the channel, regardless of not of YouTube saying they changed their guidelines. I'm not going to touch that. You make your own decisions. But what I'm trying to say is things are just drastically changed in the process itself, the people themselves. Everything has changed since COVID. So anything's up for grabs. But I do believe right now that Kennedy, he just raised $1 million in 24 hours, right?
Yep.
He's, whether you like it or not, he's coming and he's going to build a big movement. I think he's ahead of Bernie where he was in 2016 at this time. And I think he was way ahead of Tulsi as well in 2020 at this time.
Yep.
He is right there. That doesn't mean he's perfect. I mean, he has an issue that I know that a lot of people at your network are upset with. My business partner, that's her red line. Misty Wiston, that, you know what I'm saying? And that's really, really bad. You ask me, I do not like his stance on Israel-Palestine. But right now, we can't, lose focus of the forest on one tree, right? Or however that thing is, because bringing the political discourse, building a movement we can coalesce around, and I mean that a coalition at the end, because that's what I'm hoping after the primaries, Cornel West, RFK, libertarian people, they come together, build a huge coalition, and then something happens. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm hoping for.
My candidate is Dr. West. One of the main reasons is that he's not running through the duopoly. So that's a big one for me. I'm not supporting the Democratic Party. I'm not supporting the Republican Party. That's a really big one. His position on Israel and Palestine, I believe, is the correct position. Both candidates are anti-war. So that's a big thing. They do agree on that issue. When I talked to Dr. West, I didn't realize that at the time, but apparently they do know each other. Apparently they have worked together with each other before, because I asked him, would he be interested in building any type of coalition with RFK Jr. on the issues where they do agree, like the anti-war movement. And he told me like they have worked together before in the past. So that was news to me. But I think that the problem that I have with the DNC, it's a big one. I talked to the Beck's lawyers. I brought them back on here. They talked about, obviously, what happened in reference to the DNC fraud lawsuit. There's that. We know what the DNC is going to do. We know they're not going to let him be the candidate. And I think what troubles me with RFK is that he has appeal across political ideologies. That's a good thing. And so to me, I'm just like, you need to either be running as an independent or third party, because the Democratic Party is going to screw you over. They're already doing it right now. They won't even let him and Marianne debate Joe Biden. Yeah. So the thing is like, again, when that time comes, what is RFK Jr. going to do? Do you think that he is going to break away and say, that's it, I'm running third party or independent? Or do you think he's just going to say, all right, that's it, I'm out, vote for Joe Biden?
Well, there's two things I want to talk about real quick. Number one, the DNC lawsuit case, which I know it radicalized me. That's why I became an election integrity activist and why I am today, because of that specific case. Jared Beck, recruited by Nico House, very close, MCSC network. We are colleagues, and I've come up in this game with Nico. I use the Convo Couch used the MCSC YouTube to stream in our first year and a half, 2 years. So I'm forever grateful to Nico. He's like family to me. But that case is something that not a lot of people are talking about. Number one, the case wasn't brought up by Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders wasn't on that case. It was his supporters. Number two, Bernie Sanders at the DNC convention acquiesced. He suspended the rules and gave Hillary Clinton the nomination by acclamation. That's what also helped that case go moot and why it was closed down. Even though the DNC lawyers, Bruce Spiva, said, we can go into the back room full of cigar smoke and pick whoever we want. There's no such thing as a Democrat. We're a corporation. We don't have to abide by our charter. Well, it's different this time. If let's say, for instance, RFK says no, he files the lawsuit. He's a lawyer. He understands something. The best thing, I think RFK's biggest attribute is the fact that he has sued a lot of these captured agencies. And that's where a lot of people are not talking about what he's done in the past. He's done a lot of great work. He's had some cases which I disagree with, but the majority of these cases, he's sued these agencies. So what if he's to say this time coming out, well, I'm going to press charges against the DNC if they cheat me and don't give me a fair trial, and I'm going to fight it to the end. We have that thing to talk about. You know what I'm saying? And secondly, you know what I'm saying? He's going to have a movement. Even if he endorsed not Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, which I don't think Joe Biden's going to be the nomination. The way he's acting, walking off the set today with Christine Wallace or whatever her name is. No, Dana, I think it was Wallace, the one who was a Republican who was now on MSNBC. Joe Biden gets up and walks off before they cut to the commercial break. Yep. He keeps saying that Putin's losing to Iraq. If RFK were to drop out and then endorse Joe Biden, it doesn't make a difference. 90% of his followers, and that's being good, like being generous. 90% of his followers are going to go vote for Donald Trump. That's who their second choice is. So we don't have to worry about this being a sheep herding operation the way a lot of people are saying it is. You can be upset that he's keeping people in the duopoly. I was very upset at that at first, but do we want just Joe Biden running wild, doing whatever without anybody challenging him, without anybody nipping at his heels, without anybody within his own party that can continually call out his bad policy? We want that. And whether we like it or not, and I do very much support third parties, and that's why I said I have to vote for Cornel West today, a lot of people are stuck in that two-party duopoly. You know what I'm saying? And I know that is some kind of urgency that we need to get people out of that, but we still need to coalesce around issues. You know what I'm saying? Our foreign policy. And right now, I think RFK is the best at foreign policy. Other than Israel-Palestine.
I was about to say.
Other than Israel-Palestine. Yeah. Other than.
I think that, the money concern, this is a big one for me. So when we talk about building a movement, a grassroots movement, RFK Jr. has a super PAC. So that's a big red flag for me. He's taking corporate money. There are the tech bros in Silicon Valley that have gotten behind him financially. David Sachs announced this during an interview. There's a couple of others as well. And I have to ask,
not big tech, though. Not big tech. Not big tech. We're talking like Bitcoiners and tech bros and others. So not the Googles and all the other peoples, because they hate him and censor him all the time. So there is a difference between the two.
Right. But David Sachs, for one, like he owned Callin, which is now owned by Rumble. He's now on the board at Rumble. He's a billionaire. And so again, like for me, what happened to no big money interest? And I think, what is he going to do for them? What is he going to do, for the corporations, the people that are backing him? Why does he have a super PAC? Like he doesn't need it. Like he could do just a straight grassroots campaign like Bernie did. Bernie raised a lot of money. He had the most money when he ran in 2020 off of those small dollar donations. So for me, it's just, I don't understand why he is attaching himself to big money interests. I feel like that's a big no-no, especially for someone who says they want to bring the Democratic Party back to what it was. Well, back to what it was not attached to super PACs.
Yeah.
So that's a red flag for me.
Yeah. I can understand that, but I don't look at it that way completely, Sabrina. I know the big money, the most harmful money, are not going to invest in them. Big pharma, not going to invest in them. Big tech, not going to invest in them. Military industrial complex, not going to invest in them. And there is this kind of situation where it is an election. It is about raising money. Yeah, you got to be careful about who you get your money from. But the most horrible interests out there are going to stay away from. They hate him. They hate him with a passion. Big pharma hates this guy. So, I mean, it is tough. And it's kind of this, we've had as independent media journalists sometimes, right? We say, oh, we're not going to take corporate money, whatnot. But then we kind of shy away from kind of going out and getting other money that could be suspect, but on the board, but won't be influential. We understand it's a business. We want to run this as a business. You know what I'm saying? There's big money around us. I'm sure we all know about it. But, it's the specific money that we got to be careful about. And I think he stayed away from the big interest, the huge interest that are going to go invest in Biden and some in Trump. He's not going to get a lot of that money. So he's got to get what he can get. But, yeah, be careful. I understand. But so far, I'm okay with where he's at. If Pfizer gives him money, I got a problem. If Northrop Grumman gives him money, I have a problem. But guess what? They're not giving him money.
But still, when you take big money, there is a vested interest there. Like, people don't donate to you and not try to get something in return. So I think people need to start questioning that. Again, he does not have to take corporate money. He could do strictly grassroots and he'd still get that momentum, I think. Yeah. One, because of his name, and one, because he's also running on that anti-war message as well. Yeah. When it comes to both of them, though, Dr. West and RFK Jr., do you think it would be even stronger if they actually ran together? This is another thing that people have been asking me, why aren't they just running together you think that would help actually elevate it a lot more?
Yeah. And that is, I've talked about this too as well. I know we've kind of looked at all the different angles. I think when he gets out of the hole, when he gets kicked in the teeth by the DNC at the convention and he goes out, instead of endorsing Biden, if we would join the ticket with Cornel West, I think it would be important. Right now, I think Cornel West's campaign, though, has got to ease up on him right now. They're kind of taking some shots at him. We haven't seen RFK shoot back. So, and that's something a couple of, independent media personalities have told me. They've been really frustrated. Like, why is Cornel West and Chris Hedges going after RFK? They're not running after him. Wouldn't they be wanting RFK to give as much trouble as possible to Joe Biden so that when he does get cheated, he steps out and his voters go to Cornel West? So, that's the unity ticket I think that people have to start thinking about. And I've said this before. I think a lot of my, co-hosts and co-workers, and not so much my co-hosts, I don't want to involve female, but other colleagues have not been like fair play across the board. They've gone after RFK on his Israel-Palestine stance, but nobody's been consistent going after Cornel West, the fact that he is aloof to the COVID protocols and everything that happened. You know what I'm saying? When I saw you put up that tweet the other day about if anybody wants to question RFK and vaccines, look at this. I was like, yes, Sabrina, thank you so much. You know what I'm saying? Because it's important to the voters. The majority of the voters in America care way more about the COVID protocols, unfortunately, than they do in Israel-Palestine. It should be equal across the board, but they don't. And that's a shame. So we have to think strategically how to go out and get those people and those votes.
Well, I think a lot of people aren't asking Dr. West about that because we can't talk about it on YouTube. Like, even for me, I told people ahead of time, like, but we already got like a strike at RBN. And like, we didn't even.
I get that. And a lot, you can do it on Rumble. You can do it on Rockfin. You can switch over. And whether we're doing it or not, you did see my interview. I know I watched your interview with Dr. West was the first one I watched front to end, right? Like, I took notes, getting ready, the boys, Nick and CJ. Then I watched Kim's little thing. I did my research before I had Dr. West on. I watched all his interviews to see, okay, this is what they're asking him. You hit him with the DeSantis question, which I thought really got to explain that, because I thought he was really good at explaining to his base. Listen, we have to work with people who think different than us. We can't. Dr. West was the first person to tell me, go ahead and speak to that Republican who thinks different than you. Go ahead and speak to that person over there. And he even said, like, when we were talking about people being, racist in the country, he goes, well, everybody was somewhere at one point in time. We can give our brothers and sisters a chance to evolve. And, that this is Dr. West speaking, and get better on issues and understand and learn. So, that's why I watched your guys' show and then I did my interview. And whether we like it or not, he is very, very much behind on these COVID protocols. He needs to get with it and understand that, because if he wants to talk to other people, he's got to talk to them. You know what I'm saying? He's got to understand this. And he was blind to what Dr. Fauci was all about. So I hope to God he gets better on that. That's one area he needs to get better on. Yeah,
I agree. I 100% agree with you in reference to that. I do agree with that. I think he has to work on that. Yeah. I think that a big part of the problem that I've seen so far, a lot of the interviews, people that have interviewed Dr. West are not asking him about policy. I've noticed this, and it's like, and I think part of it is because like we're used to Dr. West as like an academic, but he is a presidential candidate now. He is, trying to become a politician. You have to ask about policy. And I did notice that a lot of people are not talking about policy with him. And I think that's incredibly important for any candidate that you interview. Like, you can't just sit down and chit chat and say, hey, Dr. West, like, no, you have to ask, like, what's your position on this? How do you feel about that? I think it's great that he wants to free political prisoners. So that was one of the questions that I did ask him, like, what would you do in reference to Julian Assange? Like, those types of things. But I think people need to focus more on policy in reference to him.
Yeah, I think both guys have to do that, right? I think that Dr. Cornel West has to be specific about what policies he's going to strike down right away. If there's he's going to go after the Patriot Act, or he's going to go after the AUMF, and the same thing with RFK. When he's in a situation, he goes, I don't want to talk about anybody personally, But, when he was asked that question about Hunter Biden, he's like, I wish him the best. I was an addict. I hope he gets better. He should have pivoted right to, but the real shame is that his father signed the crime bill, and that puts how many addicts behind bars, and Hunter's gotten a better shot than anybody else, than all these other poor kids that Joe Biden has put in behind bars forever. So I do think they have to tie it to policies. Everything is so corrupt and messed up right now. They have a lot of opportunities to talk about policies they're going to strike down and go after. There's so many of them out there right now. So, I mean, you're right. They do have to do that. But I think people, it's still kind of like the feeling out kind of session to where they are kind of like ideology-wise and mentally and what they want to do. So I still think they're in that phase. And I think we as independent media are in that phase too as well. We're going to progress as it goes along and ask tougher, more important questions.
But people didn't do that with Marianne, though.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? When people interviewed Marianne, they asked her specifically about policy. So I think it's I don't know. I don't know why this is happening, but it is something that I have noticed. How do you feel about in reference to like those government agencies? So I asked Dr. West about this too. CIA, FBI. I think RFK Jr. is really good on that. Dr. West said also clean out, clean up, like that kind of thing. But my thing is like realistically, do you think that a president is going to be able to reform the CIA or the FBI?
Well, if you ask RFK, he's going to say, look at my father and my uncle. You know what I'm saying? So it's tough. But, listen, somebody's got to take a crack at it. Dr. West talks about COINTELPRO. He knows his stuff. He knows what's going on there. That's why I was a little surprised about the whole COVID situation, because we're talking around the same realm, same agencies working together when you understand what's going on. But Dr. West knows about it. And Dr. West said something great. One of the best lines he said, he goes, I am vowing to be the head of the empire, so therefore I can then start to dismantle it. So they understand what's going on right now. They understand how people are suffering around the world. Those guys are very good in foreign policy. Another thing that, Dr. West says, and he's quoting, I believe, Martin Luther King or somebody else, is bombs dropped in Vietnam, are also landing in the ghetto, and understands how the foreign policy is connected to the domestic policy. Both these gentlemen know that. And this is an area where Marianne Williamson is just, she's got to get better. And don't get me wrong, I'm probably feeling the best for Marianne I ever felt because of her COVID statements the other day with Crystal and Sagar, even though Crystal didn't have the same attitude towards Marianne that she did to RFK. Notice it's like a little bit lopsided over there.
Yep. Because that's the friend. That's the friend. So of course it's going to be a little bit different. What do you think people are going to do? What do you think voters are going to do in the end? Do you see more people coming out to support like maybe RFK Jr. instead of Joe Biden, especially since now the Supreme Court just struck down the student debt cancellation. Yeah. So I think this is going to make a lot of people angry. People are livid right now, like on Twitter. Do you think more people are going to be willing to say, you know what? I'm not going to vote for the incumbent this time around. I'm going to go with RFK Jr.
I do think that. I think that people will make choices to go to Dr. Cornel West too. And it's early in the game. Like, these guys got to get better in the areas where they're weak. I don't know if RFK is going to get better on Israel-Palestine. In fact, when I was having that conversation with Dr. West, I said, maybe we should ask RFK to go to the West Bank and see. Let's go take him there. You know what I'm saying? As I was saying to Dr. West, I'm like, I'm not going after you like this way to crucify you. I'm doing this in the hopes that you get better in the future. Really, I mean, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I thought I handed him a lot of stuff on a silver platter of areas he can get better on, because I've done these Trump events before, speaking as election integrity activist. I've done that a lot. So I know that base and where they're at. I just did another event, which mostly a bunch of, populist right. So my hope is that he gets better at these things. And, I mean, I'd like to see some sign of it. And I don't know. I think Dr. West also has to get a couple better people around him. You know what I'm saying? And RFK is trying to figure out stuff too as well. RFK needs to stop flip-flopping and taking down tweets. It makes him look as indecisive as hell. And now he's created a problem with his libertarian base by saying that he would sign an assault weapons ban. And the big problem is he said the opposite at PorkFest, supposedly. I haven't seen the video, but Scott Horton, who repeated it, is somebody I trust in the Libertarian Party. So he's got to stop doing that stuff, because it's going to really hurt these guys in the end. These guys got to get better. I think that also, too, the first question I asked Dr. West, I haven't seen him show me an example of it yet. How are you going to talk differently to people that differently? How are you going to talk to these Trumpers? If you're calling him a neo-fascist, those people don't want to speak to you at all. If you don't
Right.
know the COVID protocols, they don't want to speak to you at all because that's one of their most important issues. So you got to get better. And, these guys have areas of opportunity. And I really do. I'm rooting for both of them to build a movement, RFK get kicked in the teeth, and then somehow come together. I mean, I know it's a long shot, and people are telling me I'm great. People are telling me I'm hitting the pipe for that one, but I don't care. I can dream because I believe that's a movement that can really work. It can really get all I want to do right now first is scare the bejesus out of the elites. And that type of coalition in the streets, I've always seen it kind of get close, but we haven't had that coalition. And that coalition is going to be big because RFK right now is proving he can pull a lot of conservative people.
But here's another problem I think that he's going to run into. In some states, in order to vote in the Democrat primary, you have to be registered as a Democrat. So if RFK Jr. has more conservative support, or there are people who are conservatives that really like him and say that they want to vote for him, if they live in one of those states where you have to be registered as a Democrat, do you think that they're going to change their voter registration so that they can vote for him?
Absolutely. We have an idolization problem over here. People think about the candidate before the party. They really do. They could be a lifelong Republican, and people were lifelong Democrats and switched to Donald Trump because they thought he was the best candidate and they liked him. Same thing's going to happen here. Dennis Kucinich's campaign manager for the time being right now. Hopefully he goes the distance because I like the guy a lot. He knows the electorate. He understands that in the closed primary states, they're already on the phone when they're registering people and they're collecting money. Make sure you change your registration. Go down and change it. You know what I'm saying? Take pictures, the whole 9 yards. Switch over to blue so you can vote for us. And, I remember changing my registration to the Democratic Party to vote for Bernie Sanders in 2016. And then, I went back to independent in 2017. In 2020, I changed to, Democrat vote for Tulsi Gabbard in the primary. So people will do that. I do believe that. So I think that's no problem. For me, the scary part is the sore loser laws, saying that if you run for a Democrat in the state, they won't let you run in a primary, and you won't let you run for independent in the general. But all those sore loser laws are considered to be unconstitutional, and they can be tried. So that's another thing that might come out of that. I mean, I'm thinking way ahead. So, and there's other states you can run on 2 tickets. New York, I believe you can run for 2 party lines or something. So that's another way in some of these states. They understand the roadmap in front of them. I still think that Dr. West and RFK are still not understanding the process of voting enough. And that's something they have to understand. They're starting to look into that, but they got to understand where they can be cheated and where a lot of votes can come in from. People talk about Nina Turner losing, but nobody's ever done the math. My guys have done math in Ohio, and it doesn't look good. It's basically a mail-in ballot primary, and that is spelling disaster because
Yeah, and the other thing too, I think people need to keep in mind is that when people were saying like, why didn't Nina Turner run as like an independent or something like that? Why didn't she switch to like independent, something like that? I think Ohio also is one of those states that has like that sore loser law that you just can't do that. So that is a problem within itself. I know people that are Republican, and I actually don't see them changing their voter registration to vote for RFK Jr. For some people, it's all about the party. So regardless who the candidate is, they're going to support their party. Yeah. And that's what I've seen that from a lot of people, Democrats and Republicans. Like some of the people that don't like Joe Biden right now that are diehard Democrats, they're still going to support Joe Biden just because they're diehard Democrats. So they support whoever the nominee is. Where do you think Trump fits into this equation? Donald Trump gave RFK Jr., some praise there.
Yeah. And what did RFK say the other day? I'm glad he likes me. I disagree with him in policy, but I'm happy that he likes me. He's just winking to Donald Trump's supporters that want to vote for him. You know what I'm saying? That's why he didn't go and attack Trump. RFK is taking votes away from Donald Trump right now. Cornel West is taking votes away from Joe Biden, right? We don't know how many people are going to be willing to switch over and people aren't going to be willing to not switch over. But we see in the end, you know what I'm saying? We just have to wait and see. But I think there's going to be a lot of new registered voters in which is going to help RFK get over the top in a lot of these states. There's always, every 4 years, you get new registered voters. And, Donald Trump is just crazy. He says the stupidest stuff sometimes. I'm not going to let Marxist or socialist or communist come in this country. And then he said God hating. Well, yeah, I'm going to Nicaragua in 3 weeks, and I'm going to go party with the Sandinistas and the revolution. They're all Christians, right? Hardcore. And they're a socialist country. So I don't think he knows what the hell's going on south of the border, right? So he's just nuts. And I went to a Kerry Lake event with my mom in West Palm Beach. There's no young people there. I think the youngest one in the room is like 1,000 people. So there's an area of opportunity for both West and RFK votes right there.
Yeah, that's a big thing I noticed too. With the exception of the Bernie Sanders campaign, a lot of these events you don't see many young people.
No,
it's like that when I go to the city council. Like if you go to those city council events too, I'll be like the youngest person like in the room. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
I would say right now Donald Trump is beating Joe Biden in the polls. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure that RFK Jr. is pulling support away from Donald Trump.
He is, but Donald Trump is still the biggest base out there. They keep on victimizing him, and you know what I'm saying, making him look like the victim. So people are going out there and voting for him. But trust me on this one. I know a lot of the RFs. They're conservative, most of them. A lot of them right now. They're from the medical freedom movement, and he's over $1 million in 24 hours. So those are Trump votes he's out there. But the same thing with West. Those are potential, and they're not Biden because I love Joe Biden votes. They're Biden's votes because they want to stop Donald Trump. But if they give the option to West, he's going to peel away some people, especially the last Green Party candidate. Not people are excited about. I think you have one of the top 3 Green Party candidates right now in my time. You put him up there with Cynthia McKinney, who unfortunately a lot of people didn't know, like a Cornel West. Cornel West has got more of a bigger name and stuff. And then Ralph Nader. This is the guy right now. And I know a lot of people that are just jumping right on that Cornel West bandwagon because they're excited. They know who he is. They know what he's about, and they're ready to rock and roll. And I think he's going to coalesce the Green Party and get everybody in line. But I don't know why he wasn't raising money the other day the way, for the last quarter. So those things concern me. I haven't looked into lately.
Well, they
Green Party friend. Is the registration and the FEC stuff, or is it in line yet, or are they still?
The FEC stuff is fine. Someone told me that he was the FEC stuff didn't say Green Party, and I corrected them about that on Twitter, and I showed them the screenshot. No, it says Green Party. That's all fixed. Okay. But I think they may not be able to raise any money until that transition is complete, because like under People's Party, you might have been under like one bank and now you've switched to Green Party. So you got to do all that. There's those kind of things. Frank just said, thanks for the super chat, Franklin. RFK will be out of the race by next week. He just raised $1 million, Franklin.
24 hours. 24 hours. He's hoping to he's always hoping to report 5 mil. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Now that may happen to someone like Marianne.
I thought she'd be out of the race by now. Whose tweet that told me he raised $1 million in 24 hours was Peter Dow. I was like, oh, Peter Dow, what are you looking for a job now, buddy? The ex-campaign manager for Marianne Williamson mentioning RFK. I was like, that's cool. But listen, me personally, I loved hearing Marianne speak on the COVID protocols and stuff. But the other things, she's just like, the other areas, her foreign policy is so bad. She can't, she was trying to state that Biden's different than Donald Trump's and is better. I mean, she's just, I don't know,
Yeah, it's just Franklin don't want to quit. How much did Bernie raise? Well, you're talking about over the entire campaign period. We're just telling you he just raised $1 million in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Like that's huge. That's significant. And
We're
even polling wise,
out, right?
Even polling wise, huh?
How many months out from the election? July, August, September, October, November. So 17 months out, and he's raising that kind of money already when people aren't even engaged.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. This is a big thing that people need to pay attention to. And polling wise, I don't think Bernie was at where RFK Jr. is at the same time.
I mean, he caught fire quickly. I don't remember exactly what I'm saying. And Bernie Sanders had a lot. It's interesting because in the first 2016 run, Bernie showed appeal across the board a little bit more because he was more involved in the economics and the labor issue. Then when he went a little bit more to the culture wars in 2020, he was just getting the left. The right was done with him, and they were cool with Donald Trump. It's a different story right now. So
Yeah, I mean, do you think that in reference to like Cornel West and RFK Jr., do you think that anyone else is going to emerge in this race? I'm curious because there's been talks of this group called No Labels, possibly like running like Joe Manchin. This is ridiculous. Joe Manchin or pairing Mitt Romney with like Liz Cheney or something like that. All kind of just mainly status quo centrist people.
Yeah. I mean, those aren't even centrist people there. Those are more conservatives in my mind. No, I heard about No Labels. I heard about the whole thing. Now, listen, right now, the only candidate that can come out of in a populist mindset and really get a lot of people's attention is the Libertarian Party. Right now, it's their move. It's the next move, right? It depends on who they choose. Like I said, Dave Smith is rumored to be one of the top 3 people that the Mises Caucus, who is in control of the Libertarian Party right now, first time ever, is going to. What's up? Kit it said on my show the other day that Cornel West is a better candidate than RFK, and he had RFK on for a show and had a great show, and he said that Cornel West was a better candidate than RFK because of the Israel-Palestine issue. What is that telling you about the Libertarian Party where they're at now? Right? Remember when I was on your show a long time ago, I'm like, take a look at the Libertarian Party. Most of the people are like, all right, you crazy. No, it's a leftist Libertarian Party. Yeah, they're still capitalists, which I know a lot of people at RBM wouldn't be crazy about, but when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to law reform, what I'm saying, criminal justice reform, the libertarians are the only people I know that hate the cops more than the leftists, than the progressives. And they're really smart about it. Their reforms are all about, personal rights. So they know how to get the right reforms, you know what I'm saying? And they are great on foreign policy. So if that's happening, think about what candidate's going to come out of the Libertarian Party this time. It's not going to be a Gary Johnson or a Joe Jorgensen. It's going to be a populist name, and they're floating names out there, and they have a great chair. And the chair knows they're going to be losing ground if they keep waiting. Angela McCarter, who was one of the organizers of Rage Against the War Machine, I've had her on my show before. She made a point to go out. And I saw her at Freedom Fest, and she gave a speech, and she made it plain and simple. She's reaching out to leftists who are strong on foreign policy, civil liberties, and freedom of the press. She's like, I'm going to get them to come on over to the Libertarian Party. And I think they've gotten themselves in good position. Now, they got their own BS as a party thing, but they're going to have hopefully a strong can come out soon. And I really think it's going to be great when we see these 3 candidates, and if RFK is not going to get a debate, let's set up a debate with Cornel West, RFK, and that Libertarian candidate. If Marianne's still in the race and she wants to jump in, let her. But, that's something that's really, that's the candidate we're waiting for right now.
So in reference to the Libertarian Party, I think the problem that they run into in efforts to recruit leftists to the Libertarian Party is the Mises Caucus. That's a big turnoff for a lot of people, the fact that they control that party now and some of the rhetoric that they have. So that's going to be an issue for them. But I'll also say the Libertarian Party is on the ballot in all 50 states. And you mentioned Gary Johnson. For people who are not aware, that run that Gary Johnson had, did you guys know that was the second best run in the Libertarian Party in history after Ross Perot? I was showing people this the other night. Like, if you look up Gary Johnson, it goes through the whole thing. It said that's how significant, how good his run actually was. So if they're on the ballot in all 50 states, should RFK Jr., if he were to pivot away, should he pivot away to the Libertarian Party?
Yeah, if he can. But I don't know if, with his late He'll sign an assault weapons ban is really going well with the libertarians. They get pissed off about that there, you know what I'm saying? And the people who are upset with the Mises Caucus, unfortunately, those are people who I think have a hard time working with anybody across the board. You know what I'm saying? And Cornel West does have some of those people in his cabinet, people like Medea Benjamin and stuff like that. But the independent-minded people are not going to be upset with the Mises Caucus. They're going to go behind the candidate and a lot of the things they stand for, because in this time of censorship, the Libertarian Party has been kind of raised higher than any third party out there right now. Cornel West has got a lot of stuff to deal with inside his own party. But all these other things, these censorship, this, Julian Assange, this interventionist, the Ron Paul style, all that has been looked at. The Libertarian Party has probably had the most gains as a third party. They took over Freedom Fest. It used to be the Patriots and the Conservatives. It's all libertarians running that thing right now because people have matriculated to that party.
But have you seen some of the posts that have come from the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire on Twitter?
There's 4 people running that account, and this is the problem when you have a decentralized party. You're not going to be able to carry a centralized message. I spoke to one of the 4 people who run that New Hampshire account today. And I said to him, like, he goes, Pasta, what am I supposed to do? You know what I'm saying? We started this together. Once the candidate comes out, the candidate will have that message. And I don't think the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire will drag him down. I think that once that person's message comes out, they'll tell that person. Once they pick that person, he'll settle them down. I don't think people are going to be lost by tweets all the time. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think that baggage is going to come. Yeah, there'll be some people who won't go with them and they don't like that New Hampshire Libertarian, Twitter. But a lot of people do like it. It's got a lot of followers, So they're going to have to take the good with the bad. That is for a decentralized party, is carrying a centralized message and getting people on the same page.
Yeah, because they had a tweet recently where they were smearing MLK. Like they've had some racist tweets come from that account as well. And I'm just like, nah, bro.
Yeah. There's going to be people going to be turned off. They said that the Martin Luther King or poor people were poor because of socialism. Something stupid today. Because I called one of the guys. I'm like, what is that dude doing, man? But they're 4 people. They have access to that account, and it's. Trust me, the leaders in the Libertarian Party themselves right now, and I'm Angela, she's shaking her head in that issue. But I don't think it's going to cost them that much in the long run when it comes to the populace. I think they get past that. I do think. I could be wrong. Who knows what else they tweet recently, but we'll see. Because, maybe just 4 people will end up locking it up, and they'll start another Twitter instead or something, or they'll come to some conclusion where this person can run it. They're going to have to go look into laws to see what they can do, who's going to have control of that stuff. But once they get their candidate, they'll have a centralized message, Angela, Clint Russell, David Smith, these people are not racist. Scott Horton, these are great people that are really at the top of Mises Caucus. It's a new Mises Caucus. So they're going to have some cleaning up themselves. But, you have a bunch of people in the Green Party and the steering committee that were all for pro-mandates. Is Dr. West going to be able to get past with that? That's a huge thing with a lot of people, the pro-mandates. People from the Black Caucus went crazy. Yep. And what did they do? They threw them out of the Black Caucus. They suspended them. And, I talked to, a lot of people a couple people from the Black Caucus of the Green Party. And I brought that to Dr. Cornel West's attention. But these are things I think Dr. West can get past, the Libertarian Party person can get past, because they're genuine. And they're going to pick hopefully a genuine candidate. And people will relate to Dr. West the way they relate to RFK and hopefully relate to that Libertarian Party. I think they can get past these things. Red flags, yes, but I think they can get past.
It'll be very interesting. I'll say one of the questions here. I like this question. Thank you, Marcos. Thoughts on a Cornel / Tulsi ticket? I feel she'll help reach more people. I heard a rumor, Pasta, that Tulsi might be considered. Excuse me. Might be considered as a running mate for RFK Jr.
Well, she's definitely a supporter. She's always been a Kennedy person. And who knows, what I'm saying? She's currently out of the Democratic Party. I heard a rumor that Tulsi was going to be Trump's vice president. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. Right now, today, if you told Cornel, if people were to say that, I know people in the Green Party who are supporting Cornel West, or new people who are supporting Cornel West, they'll say no way. No way that they'll take that. They'll accept Tulsi. They'll be crazy. They'll be upset. Right now, his base would not allow that. They would reject Tulsi. Unfortunately, that's where his base is at right now. I don't think that Tulsi's worthy of being rejected. If she was in Congress today, she'd probably still be one of the better Congress person, along with Thomas Massie, who I don't like a lot of his decisions, but when it comes from freedom of speech and privacy and going against big tech, he's great there. So it would be a good ticket for the populist people, for the normies, but his base would just go crazy. I'd make that move. He wouldn't make that move. He'd be respectful to her, but he wouldn't make that move. And RFK would make that move. But
Who do you think would be best for RFK Jr. as a running mate? And I'll tell you who I think for Cornel West.
At the current stage right now, I never thought about that. I'm still hoping that it's a Cornel West RFK ticket with either one on the top and the bottom and stuff. But see, I can see Cornel West going, you take the president, I'll be your vice. Come on over here. Kind of what Dr. Jill Stein did. I know a lot of her supporters now would be upset, but when it comes election time, he might have other supporters be like, yes, let's do that. But right now, I mean, wow, I think Tulsi would be a good choice for RFK. I really do. I think that would be a good choice for him right now. And for Cornel West, I would love for it to be Cynthia McKinney, but I don't think that Cynthia right now is her head's in the game to get there. I would say a Jamu and Cornel would be the two best together, right?
That's what I was going to say.
Yep. I think they both need to get better with talking to more conservative, right-leaning people. You know what I'm saying? I think they have to get more Fred Hampton and concentrate more on class than anything else and that solidarity. But I think they can get there. You know what I'm saying? I think those two would be great. I think Tulsi and RFK would be a good ticket right now. But, I'll probably come up with somebody else for RFK. If I think Tulsi's out of the Democratic Party and she's sailing on. But a lot of people have talked about her joining up with him because she comes with a base, and so does a Jamu. They come with people already. Mm-hmm. So we'll see.
Yeah, Cynthia McKinney, for people who are not aware, I asked Cynthia if she would consider running again. She said, never say never. But then there's the issue that she doesn't live in the U.S. anymore.
Yeah.
So for people who are not aware.
Back. She moved away for threats to her life because she was, once again, one of the only people to go and challenge the establishment, especially the Democratic establishment. And they redistricted her and then cheated her election. And then she had to move on. And I mean, she's a person that got arrested in an Israeli prison for a couple of days. She's the only one who wanted an independent investigation in 9/11. She's the real OG. She's an election integrity activist. She wrote a book on elections going back to 1900. She's talked about chemtrails. I mean, that woman is so strong. I mean, like I always say, like she's the last OG. I love Cynthia McKinney. I am a big Cynthia McKinney fan. So if Dr. Cornel West, but Dr. Cornel West hasn't mentioned her name once, he's mentioned, we Chris Hedges over here, Jill Stein, Medea Benjamin, Jamu, it's I don't know. I don't think she's well liked in the party right now.
I don't think so. I don't think Chris Hedges wants to be on a ticket as a running mate or anything. I think Chris Hedges. I tried to ask him.
But he's got to work. He says, I don't want to work for Cornel West. He's got to work for Cornel West. But Chris Hedges got to also watch with his kind of conversation. He can be really divisive sometimes when he says those things. I mean, I know what he's saying, but that's how the whites do it. You're just eliminating yourself from going to get any type of conservative leaning people over there or any people who are independent, right leaning, whatnot, especially middle America. Unfortunately, they're just very, very tired about what's going on. I know what he was saying. I'm a leftist, but it's not going to help Dr. Cornel West if he has people like that saying stuff, which he did on Brianna Greyjoy's show. So
wait, what did he say? I'm sorry, I must have missed this.
That's how the whites do it.
How the what?
I have the tweets. I can't remember exactly, but he was saying, he was making a comment. That's how the whites do it. He said, it's on my Twitter. If you want me to share it with you real quick?
Yeah, Chris Hedges said that.
I thought it was dumb. It's not that I was all offended or pissed off. I'm like, that's just not going to help you.
Oh man. That is interesting. I didn't think I'd hear Chris Hedges make that statement. I'll have to go back and watch. I don't think I saw. No, I didn't see the whole interview, so I must have missed that part. So I have to go back.
Here it is. I got it.
Okay, I can put it up on the screen. This is interesting.
Yeah, let me. You share with me. I'll get it right here.
Okay, there we go. Let me push this down. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Ready?
I'm curious.
Cornel has a depth that I so far beyond Kennedy. I also have such a problem. I mean, there was one point in his announcement where Kennedy talked about his father coming back and saying that, you know, the rich people have the bankers and this, but the workers or something have the Kennedys. I mean, coming out of the working class, that was a pretty nausea-inducing comment. Like we need rich people like the Kennedys. I mean, the Kennedys, both Bobby and RFK. I mean, they would not have had a chance, but for the fact that they came from a fabulously wealthy family, their father, Joe Kennedy, who bankrolled the campaign. So not only is that how JFK, and then all the dirty relationships with Daley and Chicago and everything else. But people forget that Bobby didn't run until Eugene McCarthy, the anti-war candidate, got a lot of traction. And Bobby was spending, I don't know, it was his family money, $1 million a day, or I can't remember the figure, but he buried McCarthy, but it was very opportunistic. He also was as Attorney General, the person who put the wiretaps on Martin Luther King's, he hated King. He hated King. And if you read closely, neither of the Kennedys were particularly supportive of the civil rights movement, not in any real way.
That's going to seem that's so counterintuitive to the narrative that we're
well,
fed.
Of course, but that's how white people do it. They're good at it, you know. George Washington, Lincoln freed the slaves. No, yeah. Lincoln wanted to ship enslaved people off to Madagascar. There's Frederick Douglass, who, you know, was the abolitionist. William Lloyd Garrison, you know, those figures. So we write, as Zinn says, we write those, we recreate the narrative. I mean, it's like FDR. No, FDR did not give us the New Deal. It were workers who were doing radical sit-down strikes in the auto plants. It was the old Communist Party. I mean, you know, so there's always and that's how you get tenured Princeton. You know, you write big, thick books, like some of my colleagues, about Ronald Reagan or something. You know, and Bobby speaks in that language. I mean, I have my big problem with him is over Palestine. I was 7 years in the Middle East. I just won't support anyone who parrots the Israel line. I just can't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Chris Hedges he's right. Like
about
what he said
some
is
things, true. I think that was a general statement. Listen, if he might be right, but is it effective? Is it going to work? Is it going to push people away? Is it going to really bring people in? I think that's very divisive, and that's going to push people away. When you say stuff, that's how the white people do it. You know what I'm saying? That might be okay talk for a lot of leftists who understand exactly where they're coming from. But if you're trying to get populist people and you said you want to go into Trump land, that's not going to help you. So it might be right, but it's definitely not effective. I think it's counterproductive, in fact. That's my personal opinion.
Populist people or conservative people?
Populist right, conservative leaning, independence leaning right, those people.
But if you're going into Trump country, those are going to be conservatives.
Populist right. There's a lot of poor working class Trump supporters that you can get right now. And they lean right.
Right, but why? I guess what I'm trying to get to is why do they need to get those particular people?
Well, you got to ask them. He said he's going in the Trump plan to speak to Trumpers. That's what he said. Because there's populist people that you believe is an independent or a third party person that you can pick off, especially when you coalesce with them around class issues.
Right, but he doesn't have to get them. It's one thing to go there and have a discussion with them, but he doesn't need them. It's not like he needs them to actually win.
He's going to have to get some populist people, some independent people to go over there and grab to have any chance to win. He's got to expand his base, his voters right now. He needs those people. He's got a very small group right now. Progressives. Go ahead.
There's a difference between independent and the Trump people that you're talking about. So I think like that's not the same thing.
Yes,
I
but there's a
don't
lot
think
of independent leaning right people who are registered as independent, a little conservative, you know what I'm saying? They're not full blown. Those people, if you want to get some of those white working class people, that's going to be divisive. I believe he's pushing people away. And here's the thing to recognize, that we are a conservative leaning country. If you take Jimmy Dore, Kim Iverson, and Max Blumenthal, the Gray Zone, and put them together as some of the top 3 independent, leftist channels, and you measure them up against Louder for Crowder, Dan Shapiro, and Dan Bongino, they have like 5 times the viewers there. They have 5 times the support. If there's any revolution taking place in this country right now, it's going to be a conservative revolution. We're leaning right now as a country, by far. By far. People are a little bit more conservative than they are liberal nowadays, especially with the Democratic Party, where they've gone and just abandoning the working class. You know, you want to get some of those people, and that's not the way to get them.
But you shouldn't have to change who you are as a candidate in order to get those people. You should come to people as you are.
If you're going to say statements like that's how the whites do it, it's not going to be taken well. It's just not a good tactic. Haven't we tried this before? You know what I'm saying?
Why is it not going to win over well? Is it not a good tactic because the criticism is about white people?
Yeah, you're generalizing white people. You know what I'm saying? That's how the white people do it. It's kind of virtue signaling too, as well. You know, and listen, this is the problem, is over the last 6 years, they've browbeaten white people with the privilege term, especially the Democratic Party using that term, and they've pushed a lot of people away because there's a lot of poor white people that are like, look, I can't pay my rent. I don't have any money in the bank. I can't send my kids to college. I can barely keep a roof over my head. How the hell am I privileged? You know what I'm saying? And now we can sit here and talk about how they are privileged, but there's a lot of people like that. They're just tired of that rhetoric.
Then you educate them about what the word privilege actually means. Privilege doesn't mean you're wealthy. Privilege doesn't have a monetary thing. See, I think this is part of the problem. I don't think people should have to change who they are in order to appeal to a different group of people. Mm-hmm. So the morals and the ideas that Cornel West and Chris Hedges have, they should not change who they are. They should not have to try to be like, RFK or Tulsi or something like that in order to engage with those people. And someone who actually has done this for a long time is Marianne. I will give her credit to that. She's talked to the Trump voters in New Hampshire about reparations. She doesn't say to herself, I'm going into Trump country. I'm not going to talk about the reparations issue because that's going to offend some people. You go to people as you are.
I hear you. I'm not, that's your opinion. I get it. We have low informed voters in this country, and unfortunately, they're very reactionary. And if you have to explain to them what privilege is, you're already losing the case, right? That's the whole thing I talked about with Dr. Cornel West. You're talking about neo-fascism. If you have to go explain what neo-fascist is, it's going to really lose its kind of,
No, Pasta, because candidates always have to explain things to the voters. They have to explain their policies. They have to explain their campaign, their platform. You always have to explain things. If people don't understand something, then that is our job as commentators and their job as politicians to educate them.
Yeah. I'm going to say this much. In a campaign, generalizations are bad. All generalizations are bad.
But Black people are generalized all the time. There's generalizations.
It's bad when anybody does it. You know what I'm saying?
But it's a part of the norm, and it's a part of that campaign culture. You see what I mean?
No, I don't think that statement was good by Chris Hedges. I think it pushes more people away than it brings people in. That's just my personal opinion.
But pushes what people away?
Working class white people or white people?
So it's still, the issue is that it's white people.
Yeah.
If it was so let's talk about this for a second. Because
if you're trying to win a general election, most of the voters are white in this country.
Oh, so the Black issues get pushed to the bottom because of that? Because
no, I didn't say that.
No, but I'm just saying, let's keep it real for a second. Because the thing is this: when it comes to the rhetoric, it seems to be okay in reference to these campaigns for the Black issues to either be absent, to not have a Black agenda or to push Black issues to the bottom of the list. That seems to be acceptable by the masses in reference to campaign strategy and how to talk to people.
Yeah.
But now that it seems like he's singling out white people, now it's a problem.
Oh, so it's tick for tack? Is that what you're saying that needs to happen?
What
That it's
I'm
okay?
saying,
I'm not
No,
saying it's
what I'm
right or wrong,
saying-
Sabrina. It's not effective. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. It's just not effective. You know,
but where was the
and I
it's
think
not
that
effective?
more. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But where was the it's not effective in reference to when someone like Bernie Sanders was running and he didn't have a Black agenda and he didn't agree with reparations? Where was that statement then? You see what I'm saying? Everybody got on board and was like, that's okay. He don't have reparations, but he has his universal policies. So we all just gonna get on. You got to get behind Bernie. We just get on board with that, even though there's no Black agenda, there's none of that stuff. So why is it okay when it's reversed? You see what I'm saying?
I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just saying it's not effective. That's what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is that I think a lot of people.
But when it comes to this populist movement, it seems like to me, and we talk about effective, it's okay if the ineffectivity is related to Black people, but it's not okay when it's related to white people. That's been accepted by a lot of people.
I've never said it's okay. All I'm saying what's effective, what works, and it just going the long way to get to people to make them understand. Sometimes bringing them in with class issues, and then when you're walking side by side with them, then you can get in with those other issues. If you lead with a Fred Hampton style, where we're together as the 99%, and it's the 1% oligarchs that are keeping us all down. Yes, I might have more privilege than you, but if you start from the position that we're together because how we're all suffering under the boot of the ruling class, then you could eventually work to get to those other issues. Then those people will be more open to see those issues. At least that's what I think, because the other way has been tried and it hasn't worked, you know? At least it's the most effective way to get things to work. You know what I'm saying? Is to say, it's Fred Hampton. It's Fred Hampton all together going into these areas. This is where we are together. This is how we are both being oppressed. This is how we join together. And then you'll see these groups opening up to more issues to understand what's going on in the Black community. But if you kind of start the other way around, they might not be wanting to walk in the door so quickly.
I understand where you're coming from with that.
That's all
I understand where you're coming
saying.
from. Yeah, because for a second I was kind of like, wait a minute now. Like, like what is happening? But I do think it is a mistake for candidates to try to change who they are in order to appeal to other people. And also voters can see through that, by the way. Yeah. People can see through that.
I don't think that changes who he is. You know what I'm saying? If he doesn't use that rhetoric or that language, uses a different tactic. If you still talk to him about things and you speak to Chris Hedges about how he feels and what he's experienced in his life, especially in the Black community, he'll tell you. But that's not how you get to listen to you right away. And then how do I know that? Because we've tried that. The best, biggest coalition we saw was what? The Fred Hampton coalition. They killed his ass because they saw what he was doing because it's so effective. You know what I'm saying? And when you just get people to come around to understand that we have so much more in common than the 1% of the people who are ruling us, that's how you get them in. And it's got to be that message. And then you can explain to people the other things, you know? But when you lead with the level of oppression that Black people do experience more than white people. I'm back from Long Island for my cousin's funeral, but I was out there for 4 or 5 days. Holy shit, Sabrina. It's like, aren't you guys past this shit now? Come on. Like, in a bar and streets and talking to people. And it's like, wow, like some people, not everybody, there's a lot of people who have come around, but other people are still wearing that shit on their shoulders. And they feel like they've been attacked, is what they've said. You know what I'm saying? So we have to remove that stigma. I think that the Democratic Party did that shit on purpose to try to move and just fizzle out any left movement and kind of push people to more a conservative mindset, especially when they amp up culture wars and they never talk about economics. Never, right? And when you go to Latin America, you see that, right? A mother, when you talk about, women's rights are about economics. They'll tell you, hey, I have money for milk. I need my kid to go to school. I need to get him supplies. You know what I'm saying? Women's rights are economic rights, and they express that. That's the same thing here in the United States, but we don't get to talk about that. We get caught in culture war, fighting each other, and economics goes out the window. And then we're all poor.
Their claim about saying that they talk about economics is them saying that Joe Biden created more jobs.
Economics, right? A laughable thing, you know?
All right, Pasta.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and when they raised the debt ceiling, right? What did they do? Oh, they cut all these things. We didn't go back on, forgiveness and what, but there's an avenue for them to pump money into what? War. The money there for war is going over there. So
you're right about that. All right, Pasta. Thanks so much for hanging out. But before you go, where can people find you?
Well, I do. You can always go to @YoPasta on my Twitter. We have the Convo Couch. We have a Rockfin, Rumble, and a YouTube. So we got that going on. So those are the kind of platforms I'm at. And right now, if you want to see me get out there, and I started a fundraiser 2 days ago, and it's givesendgo.com/RFK Media. And I plan to get out in the campaign trail to follow RFK. But RFK is going to have some days off. And, Dr. Cornel West has given me the invitation. I said, if I show up at a rally, he goes, come on in. We'll make sure we get you there. So have access to Dr. Cornel West. And if there's another day off and Vivek Ramaswamy is around the corner, I'm going to go speak to him. If Tim Scott's over there, I'm going to speak to him. I'm going to be starting another YouTube page, a campaign for the campaigns. And I'm going to just try to get out there on the streets and try to get into these different states and these different events. Yes, I'm going to focus following RFK, but I'm going to reach out to everybody else and try to cover their campaigns as well. So that's in store for me moving forward. In a couple weeks, I go to Nicaragua. And when I come back from Nicaragua, hanging with the Sandinistas, oh, that's going to be so much fun. I'm going to start just hitting the campaign trail and get out there. And Sabrina, if you want to use me as a correspondent, because I'm going to be streaming ready on the ground, you let me know, and I'll come on your show wherever I'm at, ask questions, talk people, cover these campaigns. Unfortunately, for those people who believe there's another way outside of electoral politics, Americans seem to only come around the normies, right, every 4 years. So we got to get them where they're at. That's the field we're dealt with, and I will fight on that field as best I can to make this world and this place a better place.
All right. Thanks so much, Pasta.
You got it. Thank you for having me on, Sabrina.
All righty. All right. What's up, guys? I'm going to go to some of the chats here, and then we will go to the thumbnail and we'll dive into the other stories. Shout out to Morgan Spector for becoming a Sabby member. Give her a big whoop, 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 whoop. Thank you for the super chat, Franklin. Trump is the only serious anti-war candidate. I don't think that Trump is anti-war. I don't think Trump is telling you what he knows people want to hear right now. I don't think he's anti-war. Thank you for the super chat, social emotional learning. Pasta do a lot of RFK cheerleading. Thank you, Franklin. And it will all go to Biden once he endorses him. Are you talking about Act Blue? Thank you for this as well. I love Sabby and Pasta, not trolling, just honest. That's good to know. Roger, thank you for this. Hey, Pasta, where's RFK on reparations? I haven't seen an interview yet where anyone has asked him about that. If I actually get the opportunity to interview him, I am going to ask him about that. I'm curious. Thank you for this as well. Social emotional learning. I see you, Sabby. Keep it real, girl. Thank you, Franklin. Chris Hedges is historically wrong. Watch the speech RFK gave when he is told in real time that MLK was shot. He was already speaking to an all-Black audience. He is just wrong. You want to challenge Chris Hedges on that? You want to challenge him on him, Thank you for the super chat, Meteor Dreams. Pasta, we can't hurt Whitey's feelings. What a clown. Damn. Pasta's not a clown. We just disagree on some things. Thank you for the super chat, Social. You are my hero. I'm officially becoming a Sabinator. Oh, thank you. And thank you, M. Smith. Let's not make the basket full of deplorables mistake. And thank you, American Autopsy. Lineage-based restorative justice is economics for Black Americans. Is other ethnic don't like that because they've been fed anti-Black drivel. Thank you so much for that.